Thursday, February 13th, 2025. Anderson.
Here.
Barlow.
Present.
Boner.
Here.
Brennan.
Here.
Case.
Present.
Cooper.
Here.
Craigo.
Here.
Crum.
Here.
Dockstetter.
Here.
Driscoll.
Here.
French.
Here.
Guru.
Here.
Hicks.
Here.
Hutchings. Ide.
Here.
Jones. Kolb.
Present.
Landon.
Here.
Larson.
Here.
McEwen.
Here.
Nethercott. Olson.
Here.
Pappas.
Here.
Pearson. Rothfuss.
Here.
Salazar.
Here.
Schuler. Scott.
Here.
Smith.
Here.
Steinmetz.
Excused.
Excused. President Beitman.
Here.
Mr. President, 30 present, 1 excused.
All right. Thank you, Ellen. Chaplain of the day, Reverend Christian Basil from St. Mark's Episcopal Church, will lead us in the prayer today.
Let us pray. Almighty God, source of our life and author of our reason, let us not be content to wait and see what will happen, but grant us the determination to make what is right take shape in our world. May our prayers lead us to action, and may our faith be lived out in boldness and genuineness. Lord, you said to your servant Peter, you will stretch out your hands, and someone else will fasten a belt around you and take you where you do not wish to go. Send us where we wish not to go. Send us where we must go, to the places of deep need, to those who have been cast aside, to the hard work of reconciliation, and to the tasks of compassion that challenge our comfort. Help us to recognize the needs of others, to stand alongside the vulnerable, and even to love those who are difficult to love. And in all that we do, may we act with honest and merciful hearts, striving always to serve you in truth and in love. Give us the courage to face the facts before us, however difficult or uncomfortable they may be. Keep us from being led by fear or complacency, and instead fill us with a spirit of hope and expectation for what is excellent in your sight. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Senator Pappas, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Reading correction, approval of journal. Will the reading clerk please read in the journal committee report?
Mr. President, your journal committee reports that the journal of February 12, 2025 has been read and recommends that it be approved. Senator Crum, Chairman.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, the report is adopted. New business, we have a doctor of the day, everybody. Dr. Tom Radosevich. Close enough, maybe? Dr. Tom's here from Casper, Wyoming. Let's give him a warm Senate welcome. All right, and I see you're sitting close to the accident-prone senator from Teton County, so that's good. Keep a close eye on him. All right. Today in Wyoming history, in 1973, the town of LaBarge was incorporated. Yeah, good old LaBarge. In 1975, Edgar J. Hirschler became the 28th governor of Wyoming. Today in world history, in 1958, Dan Dockstader was born in Idaho Falls, Idaho. You know what that means. Fire up the choir, let's go. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Dan, happy birthday to you. All right. Boy, we're gonna go on tour. Oh, yes, birthday boy.
Just want to thank the body, impressed with all of you, with how we get together. We'll disagree adamantly through the day, and then I notice the camaraderie and the friendship later in the day, and I'm always impressed with that. I'd like to say a note too to our leadership team, Beitman, Salazar, and Nethercott, to commend them for pacing us through the work. I think they're a great example. We are all a great example to other parts of this building for the legislation that we got through. And maybe just one interesting note, and this honestly happened last night. You know, you can't turn this job off, you go home at night. And so, in the middle of the night, I'm laying there about 2 or 3 in the morning, and I thought, I'm gonna watch some overnight news. Flipped on the TV, and the first thing that came up was a nature documentary on otters. Thanks, Mr. President.
Oh, that's good. Senator Pearson,
Thank you, Mr. President. Privilege of the floor.
floor is yours.
So I just want to say hello to my good friend Tom over here. So his dad was our vet for a lot of years. And Tom used to spend a lot of years on the ranch in the summer. He lived down the street, his family lived down the street from us. And so I grew up with this family and this man, and I just wanted to share that story with you. He's awesome. Thank you.
Here. All right, let's move forward here. The quote for the day from John F. Kennedy: "We must find time to stop and thank the people who make a difference in our lives." Old JFK. Here's an appropriate dad joke of the day in light of yesterday's events. Did you hear about the otter who could talk to ghosts? He was in touch with the otter side. It's the only otter joke we could find. Okay. I don't write them, I just read them. All right, so messages from the House.
From the House of Representatives, Mr. President, the following messages are dated February 12, 2025. The following bills passed the House on third reading in an amended form. Message number 283, House Bill 176, Vacancies in Public Office Amendments. Ayes 55, noes 3, excused 4. Message number 284, House Bill number 190, Bond Election Language Process. Ayes 54, noes 5, excused 3. Message number 285, House Bill number 192, Public Utilities, Wildfire Mitigation, and Liability Limits. Ayes 52, noes 8, excused 2. Message number 286, House Bill number 223, Preventing Strategic Lawsuits Against Public Participation. Ayes 49, noes 9, excused 2. Message number 287, House Bill number 249, Runoff Elections. Ayes 38, noes 22, excused 2. Message number 288, House Bill number 318, Maintenance of Voter Lists. Ayes 47, noes 13, excused 2. Message number 289, House Bill number 324, State Elected Officials, Employees at Will and Regulations. Ayes 41, noes 19, excused 2. Message number 290, House Bill number 337, Prohibiting Foreign Funding of Ballot Measures. Ayes 58, noes 2, excused 2. Sincerely, Katie Talbot, House Chief Clerk.
Thank you, Randy. House bills on first reading. These committees are eating these bills faster than an otter eats fish. All right. House Bill 111.
House Bill 111, Hit and Run Responsibility and Penalties, sponsored by Representative Smith, passed the House. Ayes 60, excused 2.
House Bill 111 is assigned to Committee Number 1, Judiciary. House Bill 31, first reading of the House bill.
House Bill 31, engrossed, School Safety and Security, sponsored by Representative Pendercraft, passed the House. Ayes 56, excused 6.
House Bill 31 is assigned to Committee Number 4, Education. House Bill 129, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 129, School Finance Dates for Fund Transfers, sponsored by Representative Larson. Passed the House, ayes 61, excused 1.
House Bill 129 is assigned to Committee Number 4, Education. House Bill 235, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 235, engrossed, Career Technical Education Equipment and Supplies, sponsored by Representative Andrew. Passed the House, ayes 61, excused 1.
House Bill 235 is assigned to Committee Number 4, Education. House Bill 117, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 117, engrossed, Omnibus Water Bill Construction, sponsored by the Water Committee. Passed the House, ayes 58, noes 2, excused 2.
House Bill 117 is assigned to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 219, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 219, engrossed, County and Municipal Roads on State Lands, easements granted, sponsored by Representative Locke. Passed the House, ayes 58, noes 1, excused 3.
House Bill 219 is assigned to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 234, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 234, Second Amendment Financial Privacy Act Amendments, sponsored by Representative Alamont. Passed the House, ayes 56, noes 3, excused 3.
House Bill 234 is assigned to Committee Number 5, Agriculture. House Bill 211, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 211, engrossed, Hunting Wildlife from Vehicles, sponsored by Representative Alamont. Passed the House, ayes 59, noes 2, excused 1.
House Bill 211 is assigned to Committee Number 6, Travel. House Bill 79, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 79, engrossed, Bond Elections Voter Threshold Requirements, sponsored by Representative Stivar. Passed the House, ayes 57, noes 4, excused 1.
House Bill 79 is assigned to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 249, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 249, engrossed, Runoff Elections, sponsored by Representative Nyman. Passed the House, ayes 38, noes 22, excused 2.
House Bill 249 is assigned to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 337, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 337, engrossed, Prohibiting Foreign Funding of Ballot Measures, sponsored by Representative Weber. Passed the House, ayes 58, noes 2, excused 2.
House Bill 337 is assigned to Committee Number 7, Corporations. House Bill 116, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 116, Driver's Licenses, Unauthorized Alien Restrictions, sponsored by Representative Ottman. Passed the House, ayes 45, noes 15, excused 2.
House Bill 116 is assigned to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 226, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 226, engrossed, License Plate Search and Rescue Council, sponsored by Representative Campbell. Passed the House, ayes 58, noes 2, excused 2.
House Bill 226 is assigned to Committee Number 8, Transportation. House Bill 264, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 264, Central Bank Digital Currencies Prohibition, sponsored by Representative Singh. Passed the House, ayes 50, noes 9, excused 3.
House Bill 264 is assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 214, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 214, Local Government Payments, Electronic Payments, sponsored by Representative Thayer. Passed the House, ayes 60, excused 2.
House Bill 214 is assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 202, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 202, engrossed, Fast Track Permits Act, sponsored by Representative Filer. Passed the House, ayes 40, noes 20, excused 2.
House Bill 202 is assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 183, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 183, engrossed, Net Metering Amendment, sponsored by Representative Heiner. Passed the House, ayes 56, noes 4, excused 2.
House Bill 183 is assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 81, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 81 engrossed, regulatory reduction, mortgage loan licensing, sponsored by Representative Yin. Passed the House, ayes 59, excused 3.
House Bill 81 is assigned to Committee Number 9, Minerals. House Bill 289, first reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 289, Certificate of Need Repeal, sponsored by Representative Geringer. Passed the House, ayes 58, noes 2, excused 2.
House Bill 289 is assigned to Committee Number 10, Labor. All right, takes care of that. Reminder to Chairman, due to Monday's holiday, your Tuesday meeting notices are due tomorrow by 2 p.m. 2 p.m. to get those meetings noticed. Reports from standing committees.
Mr. President, the following reports are dated February 13, 2025. Committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 168, engrossed, cultivated meat prohibition. Respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Crago, French, McEwen, and Pearson. No, Senator Ide, Senator French, Chairman. Committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 92, engrossed, Wyoming Livestock Board Memorandums of Understanding. Respectfully reports same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Crago, French, Ide, McEwen, and Pearson. Senator French, Chairman. Committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred House Bill 30, engrossed, Driver's Licenses and IDs Revisions. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Brennan, Cooper, Kolb, and Pappas. Senator Pappas, Chairman. Committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred House Bill 28, Commercial Driver's Licenses Revisions. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Brennan, Cooper, Pappas. No, Senator Kolb. Senator Pappas, Chairman. Committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 73, Recreation, Safety, Rock Climbing. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Boner, Hicks, Jones, Landon, and Schuler. Senator Landon, Chairman.
Thank you, Randy. Bills on second reading. House Bill 23, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 23, Surrenders Driver's License Repeal.
House Bill 23, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 25, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 25, Vehicle Accident Reporting Amendments.
House Bill 25, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 27, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 27, engrossed, Disabled Parking Windshield Placards Revisions.
House Bill 27, having been read 2 separate times, the question is, shall the bill be read a third time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. House Bill 45, second reading of the House Bill.
House Bill 45, Removing Otters as Protected Animals.
Senator Landon.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just rise this morning to revisit this bill briefly. I won't keep everybody, but we had a spirited debate last night. We felt as a committee we were pelted with quite a few questions, and I thought I would just rise and share a couple of things that came in. First of all, on a serious note, I misrepresented a coalition's position on this bill last night. I don't like doing that, and I apologize for that. What they had testified to our committee was that whichever way we went, whether this bill passed or did not pass, that they would certainly work with the Game and Fish. They did not endorse removing these otters from the protected list. You will notice in your boxes, I have provided to you, I think, the answer to a question, how many of these critters do we have? I've provided you with a new sheet There is a ton more information, Mr. President, on this, and I'd be happy to share it. Couple of things. First of all, if this bill passes and we move this species to the non-game area of law, it would join species like the gray fox, the swift fox, the pygmy rabbit, the northern flying squirrel, all species of bats, about 18 species of bats, and even our little friends, the shrews. So we have a lot of mammals on this list. Appreciated the director who has weighed in substantially on this and has really clarified with a lot more information I'd be happy to share offline with you. Again, I appreciate all of the debate last night, and I hope some of this information helps. Regarding the map, Mr. President, I did not mean to misrepresent that either. And you have an email in your box this morning from the good professor over at the University of Wyoming who can clarify for you, I think, exactly how that came down. More information from the department or from our committee, we would be glad to share. So thank you. I hope that helps a little bit.
Thank you, Senator Landon. Discussion on the bill. Hearing none. House Bill 45 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. Senator Salazar, did you have a privilege of the floor?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Honorable Senators, we have right in front of us the Wyoming Family Career and Community Leaders of America group. These are the state officers for the Wyoming Career Technical Student Organization, the future leaders of Wyoming. Students are from Laramie, Riverton, Lyman, Glen Rock, HEM, Encampment, and Tessa Kenyon from Riverton is here. And I also want to introduce you to the state advisor, Angela Sweep. So if you could give a warm Senate welcome, appreciate that.
Welcome to the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Vice President. House Bill 54, second reading of the House bill.
House Bill 54 engrossed Chancery Court Judges, District and Circuit Court Assistants.
House Bill 54 having been read 2 separate times. The question is, shall the bill be read a 3rd time? Hearing no objection, it is so ordered. All right, bills on 3rd reading. Madam Majority Floor Leader, we don't have any.
No bills.
Well, I got
No
ahead of
bills.
myself now,
No
didn't I?
bills.
That's a great idea. Madam Majority Floor Leader, we're at that order of business, consideration of bills on general file. Do you have?
Mr. President, I move that the Senate resolve itself into committee of the whole. And just a point of inquiry here too for the senators, as a result of these bills coming out quickly and just getting them, they'll be put up rapidly and they may move as a result of communications I get from you saying we're not ready or can you move it down the list. So pay close attention to the order because at this point in the session, they're prone to change quickly as a result of that dynamic time. So as of this point, this is the list. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, you've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion's been adopted. Senator Crago, come on down.
Committee of the Whole will come to order. First bill for our consideration is House Bill 11. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 11 engrossed Manufacturing Sales and Use Tax Exemption Amendments, an act relating to taxation and revenue, sponsored by the House Minerals Committee. Was referred to Committee Number 3, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators French, Ide, and McEwen. No, Senator Case, excuse, Senator Pappas. Senator McEwen, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Senator McEwen.
I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, I bill 11 do pass.
Try that again.
Damn, I got it right, too. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 11 do pass. Senators, this is really it's a good piece of legislation, but it's a small and simple piece. We've had sales and use tax exemptions for manufacturers in the state for years, and they're the only exemption that have to keep coming back to get the exemption renewed. And basically what this bill does is eliminate that requirement to get the exemption removed and make it permanent like the other exemptions. And with that, I'll stand for any questions.
Discussion. Senator Case.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I think we should be cautious. So the thing about exemptions is either extending an exemption or getting a new one. You've always got a built-in constituency of people that are going to benefit from the exemption or to come down and tell you that it's a great idea. Manufacturing exemption is no different. It's widely used, and it's not just what you think, Mr. Chairman. It's not just a big manufacturing plant, a big factory that buys some equipment and enjoys this break on the sales tax. It actually includes a lot of little things. It includes little tiny mom and pop people that make things. It includes bakeries, for example. Some parts of baking are manufacturing under, I don't know if it's SIC codes or how that interpretation comes in. But so it includes a lot of stuff. Now the question is, if you're in business and the first place you can go to get an improvement in your profits is to go down to the legislature and lower their taxes. And we're pretty good at that because we have, for example, and I serve on the Revenue Committee. I'm a former chairman of the Revenue Committee. This is not a dig at the Revenue Committee. But the truth is, in the past decade or more, the Legislative Revenue Committee has been the Legislative Exemption Committee. There's only one tax, and that's the lodging tax that we've put in the past decade or more. I mean, that's the reality we have here. But at the same time, Mr. Chairman, we have a landscape where the people are speaking through their representatives and getting rid of property taxes, reducing all sorts of possible funding for government. Now, property taxes and sales taxes both support local governments. Sales taxes also support the state. But proportionally, sales taxes benefit cities and towns, and property taxes benefit counties relatively more in special districts. We don't get any property taxes in Cheyenne. Mr. Chairman, we have to be careful as this landscape is shifting all over. And the question to ask is, by not imposing a sales tax on manufacturing equipment, are we better off or not? There are tools out there to figure that out. There literally are. There are now good economic studies. One of them the state owns, and we could actually figure out, are we better off with the tax revenues and no exemption? Or are we better off with the stimulated, what we assume to be a stimulated business activity by leaving the exemption on? But we'll never know that if we get rid of reporting requirements and get rid of sunsets that don't bring this to a discussion, because these things change over time. So, Mr. Chairman, I think it's premature to get rid of this sunset. I'd rather see us extending it. I'd like to see some reporting requirements on the bill. I tried to do that in committee, but I was shot down on that, and I didn't expect it to be up today. But I think if we could look at more reporting requirements, and one thing in particular, that if a business is over a particular size, to qualify for the exemption, they should tell us what happened because of it. And we heard from the Department of Revenue, Mr. Chairman, and they said that they used to do reporting on this, and they only were able to get responses from like 37% or 38% of their inquiries. And that indicated this was costing the state $4 to $5 million a year. So that's not very good information because it's not a very good universe of selection. But if we were to require that a taxpayer to qualify for this exemption had to report what they did, what manufacturing equipment they bought that they didn't pay sales tax on, and just do it for the large entities so we don't do it for the mom and pa's, that'd be a big step forward. We could actually figure out what they did. And the truth is, Mr. Chairman, one thing to think about is whether, if this exemption goes away and they have to pay sales tax, they will still buy manufacturing equipment. It may or may not be less than they would otherwise. And so the question is, what is the delta? What is the change? What is the stimulus that happens with manufacturing equipment? I would propose to you that it's going to be pretty small. Mr. Chairman, if you look at this universe of states that have reduced taxes to incentivize business, Wyoming really does stand out there. But we're also the poorest performing state in terms of new economic activity, population growth, and growth in gross domestic product. And yet we have the lowest taxes. What's going on here? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Case. Senator Schuler, 1 second here.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I understand your concerns, and you know, that's the tough part with sunsets. This exemption's been around, and it's worked really well for our mining operations. The thing that concerns me about taking away the sunset is that we have so many companies, particularly over in the southwest corner where I'm at, that are just starting to get going with their plans for expansions. And not just the soda ash, not just the Trona patch. You know, we've got bentonite that's out on the edge of making some big moves. We've got uranium, and now we've got rare earth minerals that we're finding at 2 or 3 different places in the state. And so all of these, I think, keeping this exemption in will help bring in not only new businesses, but also help these businesses that are just getting off the ground be able to stay competitive. So really, this bill is just about supporting and growing our state's core industries. And again, the expansion and the projects that are coming in are going to create good paying jobs all across Wyoming. So I hope you'll support it.
Senator Landon.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I just want to pick up, I thought the senator from Fremont County did bring up some good points regarding this bill. I'm inclined to push it forward. I think it's probably good for business, but what gave me pause on a joint committee bill was the fiscal note. And so we only got a 38% return on a survey that was trying to determine something that's really going to benefit those companies that we reached out to. So that's a little discouraging to me. The impact, a little over $2 million to our general fund, a little over $2 million to our local entities through that property taxation. And the 38% figure, you can't just double that because you really don't know. And I wish we had a better idea of the kind of impact that we're talking about here. Just wondered if that came up in committee, if it was talked about, and if there's projections beyond what the fiscal note can tell us. Thank you.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, this is theoretically a joint minerals committee bill that came out of the interim, but honestly, I don't think we spent more than 2 minutes on it. We had a brief conversation. There was a request that we extend the sunset, drafted a bill to extend the sunset by 10 years. There was no analysis on whether it helped us manufacturing this incentive, did anything. And honestly, I agree with the good senator and senator from Fremont County. We should have a lot more data and a lot more understanding on whether this is an effective program that is providing for economic development in the state of Wyoming before we just eliminate the sunset once and for all and say, all right, we're giving one particular sector of industry a complete sales and use tax exemption while not doing it for the others without any justification. But the justification, Mr. Chairman, seems to be, well, we've been doing it for a while and we'd sure make them mad if we didn't keep doing it. And I don't disagree with that, right? We know that now that you've got an exemption, it becomes a holy creature that cannot be questioned, it cannot be removed, it cannot be reduced. It's an exemption, and we've got it in statute. But it doesn't mean it's good policy. And I think back to the analysis that we did, gosh, it must have been 10 years ago now, maybe a little less than 10 years ago, where we were looking at growth in different sectors and how growth in different industrial sectors would help revenue for the state of Wyoming based on the tax policies we had in place at that time. This was through the Revenue Committee, hired a national firm to do the assessment. And one of the shocking things that came back from that, they did analysis not just of the state of Wyoming, but of neighboring states with other tax policies, was that growth in the manufacturing sector, because of their tax advantage, was a net negative on the state of Wyoming from a revenue and resource standpoint. It cost more, if you create 100 new jobs in the manufacturing sector, it cost more, according to that report, to provide education to the children of the workers for those 100 new jobs than the state of Wyoming retrieved in revenue, because we didn't tax that industry. And it was largely because of the exemption on sales and use tax. Now, I realize that was a while back. We should bring that report back, perhaps, have a new analysis, and that information might be outdated. But we haven't changed any of the underlying policies to suggest that it would be different. Now, when we passed this out of the Minerals Committee, it was a 10-year extension to the sunset. Mr. Chairman, I thought that was too long even at that point. We needed more analysis, we needed to do more work, we needed to understand, was this good? And I think we need to justify why manufacturing is special and deserves a 0% sales and use tax rate, while, for example, oil and gas needs to pay the full sales and use tax. Or why my constituents and their stores downtown in my community need to be paying full sales and use tax. I don't know why they should be disadvantaged relative to the manufacturing sector. It literally makes no sense. Either we have a sales and use tax or we don't. But the idea that we're picking certain sectors and saying, well, we like you, we don't like small business, but we sure like manufacturing, seems unjustified. And I literally mean, Mr. Chairman, it's unjustified. We've seen no analysis on why we would choose this, other than the fact that somebody convinced this body and the body down the hall a few years ago to get it done, and we're all afraid to do away with it. So I'm very, very cautious on this bill. I don't think it's a good choice for us to fully remove the sunset. If we want to extend it for a while, I think that's probably acceptable because we don't want to disrupt the industry. But we should be doing that extension with our eyes wide open and with an understanding that we need justification and data to continue to award one particular sector with a 0% rate while my small businesses all pay full sales and use tax. Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, first, in response to one of the things, I suspect that the representation that these manufacturing outfits are bringing in business that costs the state money because it brings in more people is probably accurate, Mr. Chairman, because I suspect that is almost universally true, that with the extent to which we are funded by non-tax sources, both income from our permanent funds and the various royalties we get, I think that's true of almost any industry you take a look at. So I think that's not a reason to vote against this bill. Mr. Chairman, my concern on this bill is that I do not have a good understanding at this point as to what is really exempt. And it sounds to me like we might not, in general, have a feeling as to what is exempt. Is the equipment used in Bentonite or soda ash mining exempt? What's exempt and what isn't? Mr. Chairman, do we need to pass this bill and remove the sunset and date, or do we need to defeat this bill and get the tax? Would that reimpose the sales tax on these things? And then we would find out what really are we talking about? I am very confused as to what's exempt here and what is not.
Senator Grew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On March 15th this year, I'll celebrate my 45th year of being in my favorite job, sales tax collection agent for the state of Wyoming. 45 years, every month, putting that little check in that little orange envelope and sending it down. So I think I can speak to this. I think too we should be cautious. The good senator from the southwest part of the state, I think said it very well. Giving a tax break to a new business to try to stimulate new growth and new business is terrific, and it's something we do and we do all the time. I remember years and years and years ago, we had an industry that was growing in my community, the ski industry, and they came down and they asked for an exemption on lift tickets because they were a fledgling business and they were fighting in the marketplace with states around us who were competing, and we were competing in that marketplace, and we needed a break because when we were trying to sell group sales and all that, that break was important. Well, 50 years, 60 years later, there are 3 great ski areas in my district, and they are all doing very well, thank you very much. And so I wonder sometimes maybe if that tax break is still 100% necessary. Now, of course, I'm not supposed to talk about that because they're all in my district and they're all going to call me tonight and tell me what an epically bad idea that would be. But the fact of the matter is, it may be time. Yet there are new ski areas in our state that are new and right near this area that really need it. So I guess I too rise to be a little cautious on this, that maybe just a exemption across the board in the manufacturing sector a blanket exemption may not be quite what we need. Maybe we need to foster new business, and then as they grow and mature, that maybe they can fall off of that ride. My desk mate and I were just talking this morning, actually lamenting to each other about how our LSRA account has dropped to $1 billion today in the latest goldenrod. And so as we look at that and lament that, maybe it's something we ought to keep in mind. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to vote for this in hopes that we have a Second Amendment that will extend the date, not eliminate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Anderson. We'll go to the back of the room, Senator Dockstader.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't see it as that complicated. I see it as a business driver. Manufacturing. My colleague just in front of me here talked about the patch. Pulled up the figures for that, $652.8 million. That's what it is to our economy. Number of employees, 2,397. Think about the spin-off effect. Not opposed at all to this business driver in the state on and for the bill.
Senator Kolb.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this point, I don't see this bill as necessary. We got easily another year. We've made huge changes to the state's fiscal situation, which we do not know the impacts of. I'm hesitant of even dealing with this right now because we've changed so much. So even though definitely our minerals industry supports the state of Wyoming, it's our economic driver, it is the fuel that gave us everything we currently have in this state. But is this necessary right now? In my opinion, absolutely not. On and against the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Senator Kolb. Senator Case, back to you.
Mr. Chairman, I think the thing we should be most suspicious of and wary of is when folks say, this business is huge. It's $1 billion business in Wyoming. They do $50,000 worth of manufacturing every 2 minutes. And imply by that statement that that's happening because of this tax exemption. No, it's happening because the minerals are here, because we have a good workforce, because we do have a great business climate. What the difference would be if the manufacturing sales tax were there or not is the differential that we'd like to know more about, and what the costs of that differential are to the revenues that impact our cities, towns, counties, and the state of Wyoming. But just to say, that's what the committee's testimony was all about. Well, the mining of this sector is this big of an industry, and we've used this exemption for blah, 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 blah. It goes on, and they just roll out. But nobody has the causality. We need to know the causality.
Senator McEwen.
Boy, once again, I'm confused. Do you know how many exemptions we have across the state? We're not picking winners and losers with this bill. And I would push back against anybody who said we're going to grow our business economy by increasing taxes. We'll be the first people in history to pull that off. I can't wait to go there. They're going to charge me more taxes. This has been in place for a long time. A large majority of the people that testified this were from the Trona Patch and Bentonite in that area. So we can say we're picking winners and losers, and maybe we are, maybe we're not. But we're not isolating one area and giving them huge breaks because we like manufacturing and we don't like this. And here's another plus. I think if I can convince the Department of Revenue that I'm manufacturing hamburger, you probably never hear about a meat grinder again. Anyway, we've done it. If we want to look at putting some reporting in it, I don't have a problem with that if it's written right. And if we just want to look at putting another sunset date on it, we can go that route too. But I do want to stand and point out there's tons of exemptions. In fact, that's going to be one of the big things we look at during the interim committee meetings. We need to get our hands on it, even if it's just an understanding of what's going on. But I'd hate to see one industry get singled out because it's on a bill today when the others are still running fine with their exemptions. So I do ask for an aye vote. Thank you.
Senator Hicks.
Mr. Chairman, I'm back on the bill. You know, this doesn't raise taxes. It doesn't decrease taxes. It just says, are we going to look at this in a timeout in the future, or are we just going to make this permanent? That's all the bill does. If we can just focus, do we want a sunset date and revisit this, or do we not? It's not about a taxation question. So if we can just focus on that, that's the question you have to determine. Do you want another sunset date out in the future to come back and revisit it, or do you want to make it permanent?
Senator Ide.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for the bill, I want to make it permanent. It's the only exemption from what I heard from the Department of Revenue yesterday that isn't permanent. Everything else, all other exemptions don't have a sunset date on them. My colleague back in the corner here, he was dead on when he said it's a business driver. How couldn't it be? The president of the 1980s, I don't want to say his names, but his economic philosophy was, if you want less of something, tax it if you want more of something, subsidize it with taxpayer money. So if you want more business, more energy in this state, don't punish the producers. Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Chairman.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, I've managed to search through the multiple pages we've got in the green books of exemptions, and they are multiple pages, and found this one, and it says until December 31st, 2027, the sale or lease of machinery to be used in this state directly and predominantly in manufacturing tangible personal property, if the sale or lease, and then it has a bunch of qualifications on that. So we don't have to deal with this exemption at this time. We can deal with it at the budget session. We can deal with it at the next general session. We do have some time. So I would point that out to the Senate, that the consequences of passing or failing this bill at this time are quite limited, because we've got a couple more chances before the sunset runs out. So if we want to have a better understanding, Mr. Chairman, we sure could by defeating the bill, and I think that would give us a better understanding.
Thank you, Senator Scott. Any further discussion on House Bill 11? Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one last point. I think it comes down to the overall conversation about exemptions. The idea that, we only have a few that have sunsets left on them, that we haven't gotten rid of all the sunsets, and that we have a tremendous amount of exemptions out there, so we should also make sure this one has no sunset. I don't think that's an appropriate logical approach to this. I think the conversation about exemptions is an important conversation, and the justification for specific exemptions and why certain industries are deserving of an exemption where others are not. And Mr. Chairman, if at the end of the day, the decision, which I would find to be a reasonable decision, comes to we shouldn't have any exemptions, we should have uniform taxation for sales and use tax, that seems like a better outcome, right? That seems equitable. And then you could actually lower it for everybody. You could make that cost neutral. You could go in and remove all of the exemptions and see how much additional revenue comes in. It's literally going to be hundreds of millions of additional dollars at that point if you truly removed all of the exemptions. Service, sales tax, just got rid of everything. Ton of money. And then instead of taking that as new revenue, Mr. Chairman, you figure out, all right, what does the sales and use tax rate now have to be to achieve the same amount of revenue? Is that 3%? Is that 3.5%? I know that everyone would be treated fairly and uniformly. And at that point in time, we wouldn't have to come back and have these sunset discussions anymore, because we would have no exemptions, and we could try and resist that. Maybe the next legislature would be tempted, and no doubt as we move down the path of time, we'd build those exemptions right back up. But we have a certain amount of revenue that we get from sales and use tax, and we know that certain sectors are eliminated from being required to pay that. If we had it uniform, we could lower the taxes for everyone. I'll say that again, Mr. Chairman. We could lower the taxes for everyone, the rate of sales and use tax, if everyone had to pay it uniformly, instead of us picking certain winners and making the rest of us losers.
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, and following up on that, there was a time 40-some years ago where exactly that was tried. And by eliminating all the exemptions, we would have been able to remove a third of the sales tax, and the bill proposed to do just that. I suspect with the evolution since then, it would be more like half the sales tax. So, Mr. Chairman, that is something we ought to think about, because that would be a significant change in our taxation, get rid of a bunch of these special interest things and reduce the sales tax for everybody. And maybe this is the start of that discussion. That's a discussion we ought to have, Mr. Chairman. But I guarantee you, when we try it, you will all hear from everybody who has got an exemption at stake. And so you got to weigh that, Mr. Chairman. You will hear from them. I'll guarantee you that.
Any more discussion on House Bill 11? Senator Dockstader.
I always appreciate the institutional history that my colleague a couple of desks up. I love that, 40 years back, and this is what we looked at. That helps keep us in line. I'm going to give you some more of those blah, blah, blah numbers, okay? Manufacturing tax, we're trying to back that off. This is an industry we talked about on the southwest corner of the state. Severance tax, 25.7 million. Ad valorem tax, 44.5 million. Gasoline, diesel, that's taxed 1.2 million gallons plus of that. There's enough tax going on and for the bill.
Any further discussion? Senator McEwen.
Boy, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I own a couple small businesses, and boy, have I been doing things wrong. I'm going to form my own revenue committee of Don's Supermarket. I'm going to get together, and we're going to decide how much money we want, and then I'm going to budget off that. Instead of seeing how much money I have and budget and make changes that way. I think what I've heard is we're trying to protect a certain level of revenue to keep a certain amount of stuff, i.e. services and everything going on, whether we can afford it or not. No matter what we do to the taxpayers, we need this amount of revenue, and we're losing it. Once again, on and for the bill. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, question being called. All those in favor of Senator McEwen's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, that it do so with a favorable recommendation of House Bill 11, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. No. House Bill 11 has passed the committee of the whole. Senator Steinmetz. Senator Steinmetz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And after our long discussion about picking winners and losers, I would ask you to join me in welcoming some winners. The 4th grade class from Southeast Elementary School and their teacher, Mrs. Gross. And welcome to the Senate. Join me in giving them a warm Senate welcome. They're right up front. I hope good for all of you. And also Judy Parks is up there. We sure miss her. She kept us going last year, and welcome, Judy.
Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 82. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 82, Provider Enrollment Standards, sponsored by the House Labor Committee.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I move when the committee of the whole rises to report and do so with a due pass recommendation on House Bill 82, Provider Enrollment Standards. Good colleagues, this is a product of the interim committee. This is a product of collaboration between those folks in our healthcare industry, the providers, those who provide medical services, and the payers, i.e. insurers, who pay for them. And what this, Mr. Chairman, does, it creates a small new section of statute. I'll just walk you quickly through the bill. Page 2 and 3 are some definitions, just so we know who we're talking about. The applicant is the healthcare provider. Healthcare is currently in statute, defined in statute as the payors, if you will, the insurers, those that are paying for the service. And what this does, Mr. Chairman, what's the
problem we're trying to fix. The problem we're trying to fix is it takes quite a bit of time, often, for a healthcare provider to get credentialed, to be recognized, and be able to charge and insure for services they provide. So if you're an employer, whether it's a hospital or a clinic, or you're starting your own business, and you want to be able to take insurance as a form of payment for services you provide, you have to go through this credentialing process. And if it takes 6 months, that's 6 months that you don't get paid, or you're not able to actually provide services for folks who are in that service, who have that insurance. So what this bill does, and this, like I said, this is a collaboration between those interested parties, was to boil this down into a 60-day period. 60 days, there's some variation in the numbers as far as with the completed application, the credentialing is required to be taken care of in 60 days. So this shortens the timeline to billing ability for healthcare providers when they're providing services that would be billed through an insurer. An insurer. The only requirement that the state government has, there is no fiscal impact to the state. The only requirement is a rulemaking authority for the Department of Insurance to come up with a uniform application process. That's it. There's no other rules, no other obligations, et cetera. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, I'd be glad to stand for any questions, but the problem we're fixing is ensuring that our healthcare providers are more quickly able to provide services and being reimbursed for them by insurers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hicks.
Yeah, just, Mr. Chairman, real quick, just a little discussion on the 60 days. How does that compare with other state insurance requirements, and why 60 days? Why not 30 days? But how does that compare nationally? Is this pretty uniform?
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The 60 days is a starting point. Other states have started off with 90 or 120, and they've generally ratcheted it down over time. But this is going to be a new process for Wyoming. Maybe not have, we don't have the same provider base, and we certainly don't have the same insurance base. So we didn't want to make it too arduous in the beginning. So this is kind of, I would say, the not too hot, not too cold, just right, hopefully approach. We did hear some testimony that other states started at a higher number, and they are ratcheting it down over time. This seemed to be, like I said, a collaborative effort. They felt 60 was doable. So I don't know if that's helpful, but we're trying to get to that right spot, starting with something we think is reasonable. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any further discussion on House Bill 82? Seeing none, question being called. All those in favor of Senator Barlow's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with a favorable recommendation of House Bill 82, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 82 has passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 75. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 75, coal severance tax rate, sponsored by Representative Clauston, an act relating to severance tax, referred to Committee Number 3, which returned to committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators French, Ide, and McEwen. No, Senator Case, excuse, Senator Pass. Senator McEwen, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator McEwen?
I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 75 do pass. And at this time, I will turn it over to my colleague from Campbell County, one of the sponsors of the bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So good colleagues, this is about equitability. This is about, we currently have oil and gas at 6% severance tax. And in my community, coal, of course, is very important. And in a couple of your other communities, it is as well. And so we just want to make sure that we have that level playing field when it comes to severance tax. So this bill removes 0.5% from the current severance tax. As you will recall, we moved 0.5% 2 years ago. This is that second step, if you will, to being that equitable. What is the fiscal note? There is a fiscal note, as you'll come, based on projections, be $8 to $9 million loss in revenue to the state of Wyoming through this reduction in coal severance. Mr. Chairman, as you know, Our community and this state has benefited tremendously from coal for many years. We want to continue benefiting from it. Hopefully, we'll see some positive changes at the federal level. But for the time being, this is one thing we can do to at least treat them equitably. And I'd ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any discussion on House Bill 75? Senator Salazar.
Mr. Chairman, I apologize to Chairman of Health. I didn't hear what was the fiscal impact again?
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The fiscal impact, 26, just over 9 million, 27, just under, or just over 8 and 7. So $8 to $9 million annual impact by that 0.5%. But I would say, Mr. Chairman, not having the other 6% is even more problematic. So I want these coal mines to continue mining coal. If we can help them with a 0.5%, that's good for all of us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hicks, and then we'll go to Senator Case.
Mr. Chairman, just a little more information. How does our current rate compare with our neighboring states, Montana and some of the other, as far as their severance tax? 'Cause that's really the competitive area that we need to look at, are our severance taxes equal or lower than some of the other coal producing states in the western United States? Was that looked at? It's kind of apples and oranges, looking at different mineral types severance taxes, but just curious if anybody knows what those numbers are. What we want to do is be competitive to be able to sell based on tax rate.
Senator Case.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I voted no in committee. It's a tough area. Mr. Chairman, basically the production of coal in Wyoming is declining, from record levels north of 400 million tons. We'd be lucky to make 1 million tons this year. And the long-term prognosis for coal perhaps is slightly brighter under the new administration. But Mr. Chairman, Wyoming coal is only used for one thing, and one thing only. It's used for producing electricity in plants where the supplies are dedicated, through the Midwest and of course here in Wyoming as well. Those plants are running less than they used to be because even though they're fine plants, they're the best, they give great engineering and great maintenance, but no one dispatches coal when there's other cheaper sources available. So even though that makes at least on a kind of phony accounting basis, it makes those plants more expensive because you've got all this fixed cost of these coal plants as well as a big number of people that have to be there whether the plant's running or not. And so they're kind of dialed in. And they're actually so dialed in, they've actually dialed those plants into the actual source of the coal. They're not doing a lot of shopping around for coal from other sources or building new coal plants. It's kind of turned into a static thing where they are tied and their plants are tuned to Powder River Basin coal, for example. So my point in this is by lowering this 1%, 0.5% or going up, we're not going to change how those plants operate. It's not going to be good enough in the margin of the market to make a difference. We're not going to drive up the amount of coal that's being mined. We're probably not going to forego a future, whatever that future is for coal. Coal and natural gas are very competitive. That is what's been where the bulk of the competition is. And the plain fact is, when gas is $3 or less, it's pretty hard to compete for coal to compete. Now, the real questions we should be asking here, Mr. Chairman, is what happens to this money? If we lower it by 0.5%, will coal production go up? I tell you, no, it's not going to go up. Will it extend the life of the coal and the coal mines? Probably not, Mr. Chairman. Who gets the benefit of that money? Well, will coal producers be able to take that money and make new investments and make their plants more efficient? You think they will? One of the major coal companies has pretty much said that it's not going to make major investments in its facilities in the future. So probably the money we grant will go to the stockholders. It'll increase dividends, it'll increase profitability. Coal profitability has been pretty darn good past year. There's been some unexpected good things happening. This could be a direct transfer from the state of Wyoming to the stockholders. But it's not really the state of Wyoming, is it, Mr. Chairman? Because we have a severance tax on coal to benefit future generations. To benefit future generations when we no longer mine the minerals. So as we move to this new era, and I don't know what the future's going to be. I hope it's bright, and I hope we're mining coal in 40 years. I really do, Mr. Chairman. But I'm not sure about that. But I do know that by lowering this from 6.5% to 6%, we're taking money away from future generations of Wyomingites through our permanent mineral funds. We're hurting our current ability to save and invest and spend at the state level. And we're betting on a future that has very little likelihood of being stimulated by this reduction. And I think we can get some data on this because we just did it from 7% to 6.5% a couple of years ago. And there is data. And we can look and say, well, was there a dramatic increase in investment at the coal plants? Did it lower the price of coal? Did it make coal more competitive? Ask those questions about those numbers, Mr. Chairman, and I think you'll be surprised. Didn't have much effect.
Senator Cole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a general question about the impact of state and local funding entities. Just how the split will go. Who is going to feel the lack of revenue? Just maybe a further explanation for a lot of folks that probably aren't sure about this after we've made all those other cuts. Just what are we doing here with the money? Who's not going to get the money they're currently getting? Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Ide.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I think the best argument that I've heard is getting these in parity with, gas and oil. But there's other reasons, I think, as well, too. In some of my research on federal mineral royalty data, back 20 years ago, whether this is relevant to what we're talking about or not, I think it is. We received in 2005, $216 million in coal lease bonus payments to the state. 2023, 2024 was zero. It's been a downhill slide from, past administrations that are not friendly to that industry. I think we need to try to make coal great again here, and I think this is a good start to get them on parity with our other minerals. Thank you, Chairman.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I think I heard one of the previous speakers say that we might not even produce 1 million tons of coal in 2025. I wanted to make sure and correct that for the public. 100 million, is that what you said? That's quite a bit off too. Mr. Chairman, our projections were decreased for 2025. We're now at 195 million is what we think we might produce, which is 20-some million less than what we produced in 24. So we're still half of what we were at our peak. Thank you.
We'll go to Senator Landon and then Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and I look forward to hearing the comments from the senator from around the hill because of his historical perspective. But I just wanted to, I'm not sure about this approach. I have the same concerns as the senator from the other side of the room who worries that this really isn't going to make much of a difference. Where it makes a difference, Mr. Chairman, and something that I think we all should remember, the approach we've had with our minerals industry is that it's one-time stuff. Once it's extracted, future generations aren't going to be able to do the same. And so the approach of this Wyoming Senate, for as long as I've been around and long time previous, was to ask that industry to leave something behind for the coming generations. So to answer the senator from Sweetwater County, it says here that $3.2 million next year from the general fund, 5.1 million from the budget reserve account, and 1.3 million from the school foundation program. So that's the impact. The impact comes as well to the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund, which is for these guys. The picture on my desk that represents the generation beyond ours. When that runs out, they won't have any coal that they could mine, and they won't have natural gas. So that's my only caution. You know, if it comes down to, well, we're gonna boost all this production and we're gonna make a comeback, I'm all for it, because I come from a community where we've got all the support industries. So that's the balance beam right there, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Go to Senator Scott, and then we'll go back over here to Senator Barlow.
Mr. Chairman, I think in good part, whether this bill is a good idea or not, depends on what the practical effect of cutting this tax is going to be. If it's going to make Wyoming coal more competitive in the marketplace, then this bill makes sense. Mr. Chairman, if it's not going to do that, it doesn't make sense. And Mr. Chairman, what I worry about is in the past, there's really a monopoly in the transportation of coal. It has to go by rail. The economics are such it cannot go by truck. There really isn't another alternative if you're going to ship it out of state, and that's what we're talking about violently. In the past, the rail industry, Mr. Chairman, has been very adept at setting their prices based on what the final price at the plant has to be in order to make the sale. And if we lower the tax, are we just going to increase the profits of the rail corporations with no benefit to the state of Wyoming? And I suspect that may be the case. Mr. Chairman, I don't know what the evidence really is, but I strongly suspect that that may be the case, in which case this tax cut isn't going to make any sense. Better reserve our tax cutting to things that actually benefit the people of Wyoming.
Senator Barlow.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So there's a lot of things. I'll try to cover 3 or 4 of the highlights. Future generations, Permanent Wyoming Mineral Trust Fund. This does not touch the 1.5% that is constitutionally required to go to the Permanent Wyoming Mineral Trust Fund. So if there's a concern about reducing the future generations' access to this money, this isn't actually going to our future unless we ourselves are saving it as a legislature. And we've done that in the past. We are not doing that now. So really what this impacts is current spending. Current spending. That $8 to $9 million is current. The 1.5% constitutionally goes to Permanent Wyoming Mineral Trust Fund. That is not being touched with this bill. 368, that's the price of natural gas today, right now. I just looked it up, 368. I think I heard from the good economists in the back of the room, over $3, coal is at a disadvantage. Well, at 368, I guess that's more of a disadvantage. My community, what does it mean? Do these funds go to anyone else besides the state of Wyoming? Well, only to the effect that the state would distribute these funds to another entity. But no, they do not get, severance tax does not get split with the counties or local governments, et cetera, directly. It would be down the pipeline indirectly through general funds or funds flowing back from the state, if it were to happen. So what does this mean? I can remember 2015 when 700 jobs were lost in my community. It's a big deal if those jobs are in your community. And having free enterprise, having business have the ability to continue operating for a year or 2 or 5 or 10, it is a big deal for those communities that have these things. To the severance tax, Wyoming is the player in this highly desirable coal for a lot of different reasons, the quality of the coal, et cetera. And other states, they have higher severance tax. Guess how much coal production they have? Very, very little, even our neighbor to the north. So I think this is I believe this is about an equitability issue. I agree, you can maybe make different have different economic discussions, but I guess the economics don't work at all for the family in Campbell County who the coal mine says, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to shut down, consolidate, reduce, et cetera. Those economics don't work. The state of Wyoming can get by without $8 or $9 million coming in annually, in my view. And I hope it's 10 or 12 or 15 million in a couple of years from now, because that means either the price of coal went up or we're producing more tons. And I hope for both, Mr. Chairman, on and for the bill. Thank you.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, this will be about the third or fourth time I voted on this. In the past, I've asked the coal mines if it would help them. A couple times they said it didn't matter. One time they said it did, and we lowered it by 0.5%. The question is, does this make our coal more competitive with other coal areas? Our coal is already very competitive with other areas. We are the cheapest producer in the nation, and it's no problem to compete with any coal off the East Coast or the Midwest. The competitor we have is natural gas, and you heard the good senator from Campbell County say it was 358. My computer shows 366 at the moment. We are doing everything we can to export more natural gas. We want to put those 2 LNG plants into production that are on the coast, and we will have natural gas prices come up. I believe I've been told that about $4, our coal is very competitive, and a lot of these plants can convert from coal to natural gas at their leisure, and they'll convert to the cheaper fuel. That's what'll happen. This tax won't make a difference because the railroads are usually who's bidding on those, and the railroad bids it, and they say, I'll deliver it to your plant at the Mississippi or wherever it is for this price, and they collaborate with our mines to get the price they need to be able to transport that. So this won't make our coal more competitive. The equity issue is the big one for this. It makes it more equitable with oil and gas. Thank you.
Senator Rothfuss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do think it's important to remember we were down this path just a few years ago, had the same conversation, ended up passing legislation that provided a 0.5% reduction. The concerns that we're raising right now were all raised at that point in time. And realistically, we should be able to produce data and should be able to understand whether that 0.5% reduction actually helped. It doesn't seem like it helped. It doesn't seem like there has been any positive change. We certainly did see some minor increases in the coal price, which is good. That was very helpful. I think it would be hard to point to that 0.5% decrease in severance for the cause of that. That's going to be a national market type issue. But when we contemplate, again, the circumstances, this 0.5%, right, we're looking at around $12 a ton, depending on the Craig, around $12 per ton. We're talking 6 cents per ton. 6 cents per ton is what we're talking about here as somehow changing the economics. And getting to the good tall senator from Natrona County, I looked up the average delivered cost for a ton of coal back in 2022, nationwide. This isn't just PRB, this is all sources, but it gets to the fact that the transportation aspect of it tends to be around $20 per ton for the transportation. And we're talking $12 per ton for the coal itself, paying 150% of the cost in transport, and the overall average delivered price was $44.50 per ton. 6 cents is not going to move the market, Mr. Chairman. And Mr. Chairman, I think it's important to realize that in Wyoming, we'll probably hit somewhere right around 200 million tons production in a state that has in the past produced nearly 500 million tons of coal. Our productive capacity relative to demand is truly incredible. And in fact, if the economy wanted more than 500 million tons, I think the state of Wyoming could get there. Wouldn't take that many years. We're incredible in our productive capacity. The competition that's taking place, the market that we're trying to compete in Wyoming, are our major coal producers trying to undercut our other major coal producers in a race to the bottom to see who can deliver coal for the very cheapest amount because they have excess supply and diminishing demand. It's not a market where we're competing with other states out of the Powder River Basin on coal production or coal cost. It is truly our internal corporations are competing with our other domestic Wyoming corporations to see who can shave another penny off and race it to the bottom. So if you cut this 0.5%, 6 cents off of every ton, all of them are capable of lowering the price by 6 cents a ton. We don't sell any more, we don't sell any less. We don't get any more money, they don't make any more money. It's a race to the bottom. The economics don't make sense that adding this 6 cents in would make much of a difference, Mr. Chairman. And then the final point I'll make is what is done with this $9 million if we do give it to them per year. The discussion last time was the idea that somehow it would be reinvested. But when you look at, for example, the largest coal producer, I just pulled up their shareholder discussion from a couple of months ago on what they've done with money over the last few years. And since February 2022, our largest company producing coal in the state of Wyoming has done, for example, $614.7 million of stock buyback. That's real. That took place. So when you start thinking, what is this $9 million going to be used for? There's a potential example of what they've used their surplus in recent years for, stock buyback. So the idea that they're struggling to find the necessary small number of dollars to reinvest in the Powder River Basin and keep things operational, read their shareholder reports. That'll tell you what they're actually doing with it and what they've been doing with it for the past few years, as we already gave them an additional $9 million per year. The narrative does not match the reality. $9 million of additional funds will not be invested in the Powder River Basin if we make this cut. Someone will benefit from it, but it's certainly not going to be our hardworking coal miners in the Powder River Basin, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Hicks.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, a question I have when we start talking about equity and you look at mineral severance taxes, we have mineral severance taxes as low as 2%. So why didn't we just move it to 2%? And so, you know, we've got all kinds of mineral severance tax rates for uranium, special or rare earth, trona, bentonite. Across the board, it ranges from 2 to 7%. And so if we're going to use oil and natural gas, how is that calculated as being an equitable tax rate? Was it based on the amount of AUMs, about the secondary income and that comes off of that, jobs, pipelines, all that stuff? You really have to understand the economics behind each one of them. And so I think it's oversimplistic to say, well, we're just going to move it to what the oil and gas rate was, without understanding the overall impact of those different mineral severance taxes on the state of Wyoming and the economy. So that's a question I have. Why not just move it to 2%? Because we have minerals at 2%. Seems to be equitable if we were going to do that. And just to add a little context, a couple of questions that were asked out here. So a good senator from Campbell County's right. The first 1.5% of all severance taxes goes into the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund. We have another 1% that's statutory, that is split between the School Foundation Program, Corpus, and the Mineral Trust Fund. That's split, that's another 1%. And then we have a formula that we call the under the cap. So the first $155 million of mineral severance taxes, this is to address, I think, the colleague from Sweetwater County 62% of that goes to the general fund, 15% to water development accounts, 9.25% to cities and towns. Counties get 3.8%, county roads 2.9%, and then we have another very small amount that goes to local county capital construction projects. That's what we call under the cap, 155 million. This doesn't jeopardize either one of those. Last year, the state of Wyoming took in $748 million in severance taxes. So we're just reducing that off the top. I think the fiscal note describes that. That's the hit to the general fund and the school foundation program. I would just tell you that that's the most rapid declining source of revenue for the state of Wyoming is mineral severance taxes. Historically, for the last decade, it just continues to slowly go down. Part of that's federal policy, part of it's coal, the war on our fossil fuels, but it is a declining source of revenue. Does not jeopardize anything yet, but it does reduce the amount of money. The question I have is, why didn't we look at something else besides just oil and gas severance tax rate? Why didn't we look at something that has that 2% rate?
Senator Scott.
Mr. Chairman, in partial answer to that, look at the history of what's gone on in our mineral severance taxes. The oil and gas situation is very different from the coal situation. You have many more customers. You don't have a transportation monopoly. Natural gas transportation is constrained by the pipelines. But you have a lot more customers. We've had to reduce some of the oil severance taxes because it has a big impact on the stripper wells in particular. So those rates, that's where some of the 2% rates come down, where the taxes we charge really would make quite a difference in the production. There was a time, Mr. Chairman, when the coal tax severance rate made a big difference. When the coal business was expanding, we raised the severance taxes partly to provide the revenue to deal with the impact that the increased production was causing us. And we got as high, Mr. Chairman, when you combine the severance tax with the ad valorem tax, we got as high as 18%. We have a potential competitor in the state of Montana. And they got greedy in those days, and they went to 30%, Mr. Chairman. The business is in Wyoming. Wyoming's coal tends to be a little better quality, better BTU per ton. But we got all the infrastructure you need to mine and transport the coal is located here now because Montana got greedy. And that's a caution against getting greedy in any of these taxes. You really can lose the business. But under the current circumstances, Mr. Chairman, Montana's not really competitive because they don't have the infrastructure. And with the gradual decline in the coal business, and some of it hasn't been so gradual, there's no chance they're going to go out and build a lot of that infrastructure. It's just not going to happen. It doesn't make economic sense. So at this point, we have lowered our taxes. Right now, you add the severance tax and the ad valorem, and you're in the 12 to 13% rate as opposed to what the high was. And that's because we let some taxes expire that were aimed really at dealing with and did deal with the problems of building out our public infrastructure to match the needs that were created by the expanded coal business. Those taxes are gone. This 0.5% isn't going to affect our ability to compete with Montana because you'd have to make tremendous investments to really do an expansion there. So, Mr. Chairman, I think it's hard to talk about equity in taxes among the several purposes because they really are very different markets. And we do have to be extra careful in the oil and gas realm or we can lose markets. So, Mr. Chairman, look at the history and you can see that some of the equity arguments really probably don't apply very much to this circumstance.
Senator Dockstader.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, as we wrap this up, I'm a little concerned. We've heard innuendos about the demise of coal and how it's decreasing and we're not, future's not bright. I would tell you that the colleague who's sponsoring this on the opposite corner, he's got profitable coal mines. I got a profitable coal mine. We're setting up the Southwest where there's another coal mine with additional equipment, a power plant there that will make extended use of that coal there. I'm concerned when I hear this. We're looking at an industry that's set up brick and mortar for our schools over on the west side of the United States, both north of the canyon and south of the canyon. I've walked through brand new schools, compliments of coal. I'm not too quick to back away from this. Used to work with a man in business and he says, we're trying to split these hairs, a 0.5% percentage. He used to work with a man that said, you take care of the small things, and the big things will take care of themselves. I want to stand with coal for this. I'm going to stand with this bill, on and for the bill.
Senator Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, the question earlier was where is Montana on their coal severance tax? They're at 12.8 now, and you heard that they were at 30% when in 73 when we all started, and we started a lot lower. So we're narrowing the gap if we're at 6 and they're at 12.8. Thank you.
Any further discussion on House Bill 75? Seeing none, question being called. All those in favor of Senator McEwen's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with a favorable recommendation of House Bill 75, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 75 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is House Bill 14. The reading clerk will please read the bill.
House Bill 14, Solid Waste Municipal Cease and Transfer Funding, sponsored by the Minerals Committee, an act relating to the prioritization of cease and transfer projects for municipal solid waste facilities. It was referred to Committee Number 9, which turned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Cooper, Jones, and Rothfuss. Excuse, Senator Nethercott. Senator Anderson, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure, Senator Anderson?
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate or House Bill 14 do pass. And to tell you about this great little bill that we've been working on for 12 years is the great senator from Laramie County, Senator Nethercott.
Senator Nethercott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good senators, you heard that I was excused for this vote in committee, and so I was selected as the lucky winner to explain this good little bill. So here we go, senators. So this is the perennial solid waste municipal cease and transfer funding bill. This program was started in 2013. Each year, the Minerals Committee brings forward a bill kind of updating that list of those municipalities who are applying for loans or grants, depending on the type of need that they have. And we have that legislative approval associated with those programs. So if you look at the bill, page 3 is really a listing of those projects, of where that funding is going throughout the state of Wyoming in order to close those transfer stations and create new landfills, transfer stations. I have the help of my committee here. Good senators, I will direct your attention to the fiscal note for additional information about the projects, the history of the projects, and the available funding, which is all there. Right now, currently remaining funds available for these projects is $23 million, $16 million in grants and $7 million in loans. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's the annual and current update on the program and its operations. Ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
Discussion. Seeing none, question being called. All those in favor of Senator Anderson's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with a favorable recommendation of House Bill 14, please say aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 14 has passed the committee of the whole. Senator Barlow.
Next bill for our consideration, House Bill 22. Reading clerk.
House Bill 22, Water and Wastewater Operator Emergency Response, sponsored by Representative Campbell, an act relating to Homeland Security, was referred to Committee Number 8, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Cooper, Jones, and Rothfuss. Excused, Senator Nethercott. Senator Anderson, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What's your pleasure? Chairman Anderson.
Mr. Chairman, I move Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises report, do so with the recommendation that House Bill 22 do pass. And to explain this great little bill is the great senator from the hole in the wall country, Senator Crago.
Thank you. Senator Crago, House Bill 22.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring to you House Bill 22, Water and Wastewater Operator Emergency Response. Ask for your favorable consideration. Mr. Chairman, this is a bill, it is a simple little bill. It's a good little bill brought to us by one of our smaller towns to address a small gap in our green books. Under current law, we have a section of law called the Wyoming Emergency Response Act. It's contained in Title 35, Chapter 9, and it's starts at section 151 and goes on for a few after that. Under this act, we've set up a system whereby the state and local governments create both regional and local emergency response teams. Each of those teams has planning responsibilities regarding natural and man-made disasters. What this bill does is simply clarifies that certified water and wastewater operators are part of the team that creates and updates the response plans. In the past, I think we've heard testimony, there has been some question about whether these positions are actually included within the language. Right now in the statute, the language includes public works. There's been some question whether these positions are included within the public works language. And so just to clean that up and make sure that it is and that they are included within that definition, we're adding them to the statute, and that's what this does. It will also make sure the second part of this statute, and another important part is if there is an emergency, man-made or otherwise natural, that these folks are included in the response team and they can actually respond and be part of the emergency response to that. And so it's that simple. I'm happy to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion on House Bill 22. Any discussion on House Bill 22? Seeing none. All those in favor of Senator Anderson's motion of the Committee of the Whole rise to report, it do so. That do pass the recommendation on House Bill 22, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 22 is passed Committee of the Whole. Next bill for our consideration is House Bill 41. Reading clerk.
House Bill 41 engrossed, Environmental Quality Irrevocable Letters of an act relating to environmental quality, sponsored by Representative Lawley, was referred to Committee Number 9, which returned a committee recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Senators Anderson, Cooper, Jones, and Rothfuss. Excused, Senator Nethercott. Senator Anderson, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Senator Anderson?
Mr. Chairman, I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that House Bill 41 do pass. And to explain this good little bill, I'll call on the great senator from Natrona County, Senator Anderson. All right, Mr. Chairman, let me tell you about House Bill 41. What it does really is it lets the non-coal mining operations, on page 2, you'll see coal mining operations and non-coal mining. Coal mining operations have to go through government securities, irrevocable letters of credit issued by banks. And what it does for the non-coal mining operations, it lets them use an irrevocable letter of credit issued by a bank or a credit union. And that's what the whole bill is about, is letting them use it letter from the credit union. We had a gravel operator that had a letter of credit from the credit union. He was turned down, and so he brought the issue to the appropriate people, and they bring you this bill. And that's all that this bill does. Thank you.
Any discussion on the bill? All right, seeing none, sensing you are ready for the question. All those in favor of Senator Anderson's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report it, do so with a favorable recommendation of House Bill 41, please say aye. Those opposed, no. House Bill 41 has passed the Committee of the Whole.
Slow her down, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I'm trying to get through some bills here.
I move that
Majority
the-
Floor Leader Nethercott.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Committee of the Whole beg leave to rise and sit again.
You've heard the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion has passed. Mr. President.
All right, standing committee report.
February 13, 2025. Mr. President, Committee Number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred House Bill 4 engrossed, snowmobile registration and user fees. Respectfully report same back to the Senate with a recommendation that it do pass amended. Ayes, Senators Boner, Hicks, Jones, London, and Schuler. Senator Landon, Chairman.
Thank you, Randy. Majority Floor Leader clears the desk.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move that we stand recessed until 2:45 p.m., Senators. And as you note for the handout, we will caucus downstairs in our usual location at 2 p.m. So we'll caucus at 2 p.m. and we'll come back in and do some more Committee of the Whole at 2:45. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Madam Majority Floor Leader. Announcements. Chairman Case.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's time to go back to work. Your Corporations Committee number 7 will meet tomorrow morning. Note the time, 7:30 a.m. We're gonna try to go through some election bills. House Bill 131, engrossed ballot drop boxes prohibition. House Bill 154, false voting amendments. House Bill 156, proof of voter residency, registration qualifications. House Bill 238, engrossed ballot harvesting prohibition. House Bill 173, engrossed independent candidate requirements. The last bills are as time permits, Mr. President. We'll play it by ear. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
All
right, Senator Schuler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Education Committee number 4 will meet tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, the usual place, W110 and online. We'll take a look at House Bill 316, School Finance Model Recalibration 2, and if time permits, Career Technical Education Equipment Grants Amendments also. That would be HB 17.
All right, thank you. Chairman Olson.
Yes, your committee number 1, Judiciary, is going to meet upon this noon recess at 12:30 to consider one bill, not quite as many as corporations. We're taking it a little light. Oh, he's not even here to hear that. House Bill 172, repeal gun-free zones and preemption amendments. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chairman. Oh, back to you, Vice President Salazar.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate Appropriations will be meeting at 12:30 in room 113. We're going to be going over House Bill 199, Wyoming Freedom Scholarship Act, House Bill 86, Public Property and Buildings Amendment, House Bill 97, Property Conveyances Near Critical Infrastructure, HJ1, amending Wyoming's Act of Admission for Earnings, and finally, House Bill 166, State Auditor Payment Transparency.
Thank you, sir. Any other announcements? Seeing none, you all heard the Majority Floor Leader's motion. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. Motion's been adopted. The Senate will stand recessed until 2:45 p.m.